Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ask the Bootmaker. Today, our guest is a custom bootmaker in Austin, Texas, who recently started his own shop. After apprenticing with Lee Miller of Texas Traditions, he won the Working Cowboy Intermediate category in 2022 at Wichita Falls Boot and Saddle Maker Roundup, and is known for making really nice, really expensive boots. Please welcome today's guest, Graham Ebner, to this episode of Ask the Bootmaker. How's it going, Graham? Good to see you.
You too, man. It's going good. Thanks for having me.
So I want to bring this like way back to kick things off. We're going to start at the beginning. I want to know how you became interested in bootmaking initially.
All right, that's a fair question. I mean, I wish I had some blockbuster story, but the truth of it is like I grew up in Texas. I was around horses and stuff. I'm firmly from the suburbs. I want to make that clear. I am not a cowboy. My family may be like country adjacent, I guess is probably the way to put it. But we did have some horses and stuff when I was a little kid. But whatever. I grew up wearing boots. And I love to sew. Like ever since I was a little guy, I would sew with my grandma. We'd make clothes or quilts or whatever. And I've always loved shoes. And so somewhere along the way, those two things kind of meshed with the fact that I'm like a habitual tinkerer. I love to take stuff apart and put it back together, or take it apart and see how it works. I'm the kid that was like taking apart the VCR or whatever. So if you allow me to fast forward to like 2015, I think. I had a pair, and I still have these actually, a pair of Red Wing Iron Rangers. And I think I bought them used. It was like the most expensive pair of shoes I had ever bought, even being used. I spent like a couple $100 on them. And I wore them for a long time, and the insole started lifting. And at the time, I had no idea what the construction of a shoe or boot was like. And so I started calling around to repair shops, and I was like, "Oh, can you fix these boots that I have? Like, I love them, but can you fix the insole or whatever?" And every place that I called was like, "Nah, it's not worth it. We don't really do that." Tough. And looking back, that's kind of strange. I think it's interesting that everybody kind of like. You there? Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Yep, I'm still here.
Blew me off. But so nobody would do it, and I was like, you know what? Forget it. I've got the internet. I'm a reasonably intelligent person. I'm going to start looking this up. Right. So I start going down the rabbit hole of whatever resources were available to someone who wanted to learn how to make or repair footwear in 2015, which for the most part were the Lisa Sorrell videos, right, which are still an incredible resource for anybody, a boot life, on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and also the Honorable Cordwainer's colloquy or whatever it is, the HCC website, right, which is if you haven't been on there, it is a total blast from the past. Not only do they have incredible resources like the old books, all the old Golding books and all that stuff, but you have just years of old timers sitting around pissing and moaning about all the different techniques that work and don't work and how to do this, that, and the other. And it's it was a great resource. So I started looking at all these things, and I was like, okay, I think I can figure this out, right? And then I found this guy on Instagram who was doing a lot of repair work at the time, Brian Trong, who I'm still a huge fan of, Brian the Bootmaker. But he was doing a lot of repair work, and he was posting a ton of content. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm cutting my insoles, or this is how I'm sanding the heels or whatever. So I looked at those two internet resources plus his Instagram, and I was like, okay, with these three things, I can probably figure out how to fix these boots. So I started messing with it, and I was like, man, I'm really enjoying this. I'm kind of figuring it out. If I get through this pair, I have one other pair, and I'm going to try and resole those. If I can do these two pairs by myself, just with these, limited resources, maybe I'll find the class or find somebody to teach me. So I did it. I resoled that first pair, stabbed myself in the thumb with a jerk needle, had to cut the needle out of my hand and everything, just all the classic stuff. And then resold another pair of like Tony Llamas, that I had since high school that I've since thrown away. And even if I still had, I would probably not show anyone, but I did it. Like, it did complete the task, right?
And it worked. Like, they held up a little.
Yeah. I wore the Iron Rangers for a while. I stripped it back down again. And I was just gonna like replace the insole, just like do it again as someone who knows what they're doing now. But so during that time when I was like trying to figure it out, I was just doing it in my backyard, had like a shed, with like 12 square feet or something like that I would sit and work in. And I needed, this is maybe jumping a little bit ahead, but I needed some supplies, right? I needed some sticky wax for like sewing, either I was inseaming or something, I don't remember. And so I got on Google and I was like, boot shops near me. This place called Texas Traditions popped up and I had no idea who they were. I called them and I was like, hey, can I buy some wax or something? And I left a voicemail and I was like, they're never going to call me back. And they did. And I went by and Lee gave me the tour and gave me some wax and a whole bunch of other stuff. Just like kind of random stuff that, looking back, like, it's nothing that any of us actually use, but it was like, if you're just like learning and it might be good for you to like play around with some of this stuff. You did use some like main hand threads, which were super useful, and some sticky wax, and then like maybe some needles or something like that. And then I just went back home and kept after it and played around a little bit more, and I was hooked.
So that was the introduction to Lee Miller right there. And then you went on to apprentice with him, right? What led you to that? So you met him. How long was it until you actually called him again, or did he reach out to you and you start that apprenticeship?
No, I definitely called him. I mean, I will say one of my only strengths would be like asking other people for help when I really want to learn how to do something. And when I say asking, I mean like pestering. And so I kept going back and like, hey, can you, I don't know, sell me some sole leather? Hey, do you have a fudge wheel I can borrow or whatever? And eventually I was like, hey, would you teach me? Like, could you teach me how to do this? And he was like, nah, I don't, it's like, when you're self-employed, like your time's worth a lot of money. So I wasn't offended, but we kind of figured out a way that I might be able to get a grant to like help with some of that, which another one of his apprentices had done before. So went through that process and we kind of got it figured out, and I started coming in, just like volunteering my time, and he volunteered his time to me for free, because the grant thing didn't work out. Couple afternoons a week for, I don't even know, like maybe 6 months. I think I started Labor Day 2017 was my first day, and then I started as an employee in like the spring of 2018. I think I want to say like April maybe. So I just started going in a couple afternoons a week after the coffee shop, and I do repair work. That's what I started off. Like maybe the first week I replaced the welt on a pair of boots that they had made 10 or 15 years ago. One of my still favorite pairs of boots, and a pair that I went on to replace the soles on and insoles and do a whole bunch of other stuff, maybe like 4 times throughout the time that I was there. The woman lived in New York and just like wore the shit out of them all the time, it was really cool, because it was like, man, this really reinforces the fact that like these are made really well. As long as you're on top of when you need to fix your stuff, this is gonna last a really long time. So I started doing repair work, started getting good at it. I was really enjoying it, so it just snowballed from there. They gave me a little more responsibility, and eventually started doing, bottom work on new pairs, and then some top work. And then eventually, they hired me full time, and then just making boots after that.
Awesome. And how long was that? How long did you do that? Because you recently started your own thing within the past year, right?
Yeah, I left in October of 21. So it's almost been 2 years since I've been gone. So what's that, like 4 years, I guess, there, so 2017 to 2021. So probably like the last 2 years full time there, I think. But yeah, it was just like I kind of reached a point where just like had some other stuff going on in my life, and I wanted to see what I could do, see what I could do with some things that I learned, and just kind of go for it on my own. And I had a great time there. They're great people. Lee is, in my opinion, the best living, or maybe just best bootmaker period, that living or dead. I think he's a much better bootmaker than Charlie was. And he's an incredible teacher, like anyone that spends any time there is really lucky to have his ear for a moment, and I think people understand that just by looking at his Instagram. Like, he loves to teach. So yeah, it's like, I was really lucky. I just fell into it, honestly. And unpaid apprenticeships in the bootmaking world are very, very uncommon, because there are very few of us that are making very much money doing this. And I'm sure that some people are going to come out and be like, oh, it's not true, I make plenty, whatever. But like, it's not easy. Like, it's a hard business to be in, especially if you are as focused on the end product as people like Lee, and I like to think myself, are, which is to say, like, I want to make the absolute best possible thing that I can make. And sometimes I fall short of that, and sometimes I exceed my expectations, and that's how Lee was too. And I really admired that about him as a maker, because it was always about, well, what can I do better? I've been doing this for 40 years or however long you've been doing it. And he's like always looking for that one extra step to push it, to get a little bit better, and most people are just looking for a corner to cut. Maybe not most, that's not fair, but a lot of people are looking to speed up and to make more boots so they can make a little more money, which is totally understandable, right? But everybody approaches it from a different place. And I feel like I'm lucky to have been there and learned in that way, because that's kind of the mentality that I also hold.
Yeah, that's a great mentality to have too. Do you think that it's like serendipitous or extremely lucky, or have you ever thought about it that Lee was the first person that you went to and he like is like the best living custom cowboy bootmaker, or just bootmaker period?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's serendipitous or fate, but it's pretty ridiculous that it happened that way, because
Right?
I just lived across the street. Like, honestly, I lived like within walking distance of the shop. That's the only reason I called, because it was the closest place. So I don't know. I mean, it was cool. It really worked out for me, but it is frustrating for people sometimes. Like, at Wichita Falls, maybe the second year that I went, somebody in the crowd asked Mike Vaughn and Mike Allred. They were doing their thing, the Mike and Mike show. Like, hey, I want to learn how to make boots. How do I get into this? I can't afford to spend $3,000 to $5,000 or whatever on a 2-week course. Like, what do I do? And they were both just kind of like, good luck. It's hard. There's not a lot of people that'll just take you on. All you can do is knock on doors, hope for the best, and work at it on your own. And but there are people out there that are willing to teach. And I feel like if people want it enough, they'll figure it out. There's a lot more resources now than there were like 5 years ago.
Oh yeah, and I feel like there's kind of maybe a resurgence of young folks in custom bootmaking, maybe for that specific reason. And I was kind of thinking that we would talk about this later, but why not just talk about it now? Have you noticed that something like that, even in your time coming up in Texas traditions, that more young people are getting into the field?
I think so. I think so. I don't know. It's hard because like I see people that are like jumping into it because they want to learn for themselves, and then I see a few people who are approaching it as like, oh, I want to make this into a career. But I would say that that's right. That there are definitely more people interested in learning how to make cowboy boots than there were like 5 years ago. And like that's kind of a part of this like grander thing that we've seen in the last 10 or 15 years. This is like handmade craft resurgence, whether it's like pottery or leather work or like making garments or whatever. It's like, people are excited about making things themselves again, and, kind of pushing back on fast fashion and like factory stuff. And I think people are hungry for it. And whether or not they, if some people are like, oh, I just want to do this for fun, right? And some people are like, oh man, I think I just want to go for this and try and like monetize my creativity and maybe make this into a career. And that's where I ended up. But I think it's a good thing, like I'm excited to see more people in it, because I'm not a competitive person. you could put every bootmaker in the world in one room. And I don't like, I would say that most of us, especially the younger folks, like don't feel a sense of competition towards one another, which isn't true for maybe the older generation, or it used to be that way for them. I don't think that the people are like that now. But like, you know, when I was coming up, we would tell me, like, if you knocked on a bootmaker's door, you know, way back, and I told them that you wanted to learn to make boots, they'd slam the door in your face because they weren't going to share their secrets, because making boots or being a bootmaker, having a boot shop was like, it was all about location because it was a commodity, right? So like every town had a bootmaker. So if you were in Austin and you were the bootmaker and some other person was like, I want to be a bootmaker in Austin, you're like, get out of here, you know, like you're going to take my business. But that's not really how it is anymore. Like people make things in different ways. People have different specialties, you know, their styles are different, pricing is different, and everybody has customers from all over the world thanks to the internet. So like now at this point, people can kind of relax. Like there's plenty of customers for everyone, as long as, you know, you're nice and you do good work. And so I'm excited to see more people, you know, I love going to the roundup, the boot and saddle makers roundup, for this reason, because you get to see all your, you know, all your bootmaker friends and hang out and have a beer or whatever. And nobody's like, you know, trying to come after anybody, you know, everyone's like, oh man, how'd you do that? That's so cool. And then learning from each other and talking about how you do this or that, picking up techniques and stuff. So I say the more the merrier. And if somebody comes along and they're better, and they want to, you know, knock me or any of the other shops off, then like I say, go for it, you know, like do good work and people will find you. And if someone does it better or cheaper or whatever, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. So do you feel like the future of custom bootmaking is bright, or are you a little bit concerned about it in any way that you haven't spoken about?
No, I'm pretty optimistic about it. I think, yeah, I mean, I think people are excited about having, everybody likes nice stuff, right? And so like on one hand, you have a group of people who, especially like younger folks who are like, you know, they're into their career a little bit now and they've got a little money and they want to buy something nice for themselves. And so, you know, maybe some people are like, oh, I'm gonna buy a watch or car. And then, you know, I'm lucky enough that there are some people who are like, oh, I'm gonna buy myself like a $3,000 pair of cowboy boots because like no one else has these and they're gonna be really nice and they fit me and whatever, all that other stuff. And so at this point, like I don't really have anything to be sour about or nervous about, aside from like, you know, my own ability to run a business and that kind of stuff. But as far as like, are there going to be customers, you know, around for people to make boots for? I think so. You know, it's been that way for however long, 100 and some odd years, and really show any sign of slowing down. Cowboy boots they're just like, you know, they're like blue jeans. Like they are firmly within the zeitgeist of our, you know, our fashion or whatever, you know, like American fashion and world fashion at this point. So like it's not really a fad entirely, you know, it'll come and go, it'll ebb and flow a little bit, but like their cowboy boots are always going to be there.
Yeah, it's timeless. It's a
Yeah.
timeless look that people just always come back to sometime or another. And lots of folks who wear them regularly never stop. Doesn't matter what the trends are.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to remind everybody watching and listening that you can ask your own questions to Graham in the live chat. So if you have any questions, just put it in there and I will relay those on to Graham. And we got a couple that have come through, so I'm going to take a break from my questions and hit up the live chat here. We got a question from Zach Roller, and these will probably bounce all over the place. So it's a little bit of a detour from sort of my planned questions. Zach Roller asks, favorite exotic leather to work with? What is it?
Alligator or kangaroo, I guess, if you consider that exotic, which is it's kind of on the fence, I guess. But yeah, I love alligator. I have not made a pair under, you know, my own name since I went out. Like I haven't produced a pair of alligator boots for any of my personal customers yet, but I had, you know, the privilege of working with it a fair amount at the old shop. I love it. It's super tough. I think it's like classy and timeless, especially in black. And if you get big enough skin. Alligator is one of those things, like it can be absolutely beautiful or it can be hideous, depending on how big the original animal was and who cut it. Like if you're getting some like big hornback, like heavy plates and all this stuff, like I'm not super into that, but like small plates from a big animal, especially if the customer's got a bigger foot, like I don't really think it gets any classier than that. And they're, it's soft and super comfortable. It lasts a long time if you take care of it. It's one of those things that like, it's a statement in and of itself. So like you could have a pair of, black alligator vamps and black kangaroo tops or whatever, or full gator, and you don't really need anything else on there for them to be like a statement, showy, classy boot.
No doubt, no doubt. One of my dream boots is a black gator, but the bias cut where the tiles are going diagonal across the foot.
Yeah, that's also like, a lot of the things that I do because I was taught that way. And so of course I think that's the right way to do it. And like what you're saying about an ankle cut vamp, like I think that's the right way to do it. Especially if you can get the smaller plates. Like if you get big, fat, chunky plates and they're just going straight across the foot, especially if they land in the wrong spot on the foot, like you're just kind of asking for trouble. Things are going to crack and break and they're going to split in weird spots. But if you get a big animal and you get a nice angle cut vamp from one of the small scale spots, like it's beautiful, it's comfortable. Like there's nothing sexier than that, I think.
Damn straight. Love it. Great answer. Got another question in here from Mike K, and I like this question. He asks, do you have a story about finding your own unique style and process, given that you worked under such a legend like Lee Miller?
Yeah, I feel like the answer to that is still ongoing for me, honestly.
That's fair.
I have things that I like to do that I feel like are fairly different from what other makers do, and the fact that like I love to doodle just on my own time. Like I really like illustration and cartoons and stuff like that. And so I find a lot of inspiration in just like random stuff that I see on the internet or books or whatever. And I like to think that my mind is like a little bit, well, not like to think, but my mind is a little bit all over the place, like I'm a little disjointed and I am, I don't know, maybe a little strange sometimes. And so I like fun stuff, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't like making a pair of boots with a brand on the front and nothing else. I don't like to do, I love top stitching. I like making a traditional boot, but I don't want to make only super traditional stuff, right? Like I want to do weird stuff. I want to do stuff that people haven't seen on boots in a long time. Not that they maybe haven't ever seen, because if you go back and you look at any of the like, Tyler Beard or Jennifer June books or any of these, right? Like you will see some of the craziest stuff in here. And almost no one, for the most part, maybe like Rios and some other people, Rocket Buster or something, like almost no one is making stuff like that. And it's understandable because it is incredibly time consuming and it's really expensive. But it's so cool. And in my mind, maybe this is a better answer to your question, is like, I want to be more on the art end of the spectrum as far as a cowboy boot goes. Like, I know how to make a good boot. I know how to make a solid cowboy boot for whatever you want to do with it, but like that's just part of it for me. Like I want to push that envelope to the point where at some point, maybe my work is considered more art or sculpture than just something that you wear on your feet. And honestly, if somebody was like, oh, I have this wild idea for a pair of boots and I don't even know if I'm gonna wear them, like, I don't care. That sounds great. Like I'll make you a pair of boots to put on your shelf if it means like making them out of some ridiculous material or whatever. I just, I like that I get paid to like doodle and turn my doodles into like little sculptures that people put their sweaty feet into and like go out dancing or riding their motorcycle or whatever, so I'm still finding the answer to that question is what I'm trying to say. But there are small things that I've figured out at this point. I pretty much only want to make stuff that I like. I don't want to be the shop that just says yes to anything. And that's not a dig. My point in saying that is there's a lot of really great makers who will make you a pair of, I don't know, whatever kind of boots that you want with anything on them. but I am most interested in maybe taking an idea that someone has and like creating a piece of art and then turning that into a pair of boots for them, than just, I don't know, putting stuff on the top and stitching it up and calling it a day. That's just for me. And that's just because like I'm easily distracted and I know myself, and it's like if I can't really get into a project, then like I can't do the quality of work that I want to do. So maybe it's self-preservation. I don't know.
Yeah, and it keeps you inspired and motivated to keep going. I completely understand that. If you're working on something that you're passionate about, that you don't want to stop at night, but you have to go to sleep, then you're excited to work on it again the next day, then that's life. That's living. That's
Yeah,
good.
exactly. Like I want to be excited. And I think I just like, I want to make art. I want to be creative and stuff. And I happen to make cowboy boots. Maybe that's like something important for me. It's like, I want to just make art. And like, at the moment I do that through cowboy boots, and people can put them on their feet and stuff,
So were you big into art before you started messing around with shoes and boots?
No, I mean, maybe a little bit. No, I mean, I've always been like a creative person. Like I've always doodled or drawn or painted or whatever. But I definitely wasn't like, like a classical artist or something like that. But I've always been like I don't know, like a fun art creative person, like I like to draw and all that stuff. But I never felt like I found my medium, I never felt like I found the way that I wanted to express like the like fun that was in my head, until I realized that I could like make stuff out of leather and then combine it with like cowboy boots, which I already loved, and it's like there's not a lot of other articles of clothing, or I don't even know how to say that you can do this with. I mean, you can do it with like, you can do it with clothes for sure, but like cowboy boots are so unique in that way that like you have something functional, but then you have this like perfect canvas set aside, these like nearly 4 square feet or whatever of blank space that you can use for whatever you want. And you can show it to people if you like shotgun your pants or you're wearing a dress or whatever, or you can hide it and you can go to work at the bank and no one will ever know that you have, I don't know, marijuana leaves or whatever stitched on your tops.
Yes, I love it. And I think that's so cool. Such a good canvas for you to mess around with. And we all love that you do, because you are doing some extensive inlays. I mean, one of your most recent pairs, what was it like? There was so much going on the tops. It was like mushrooms, armadillos, UFOs, cactus. Like, what was that? Because I kind of want to know the story behind that, because there was so much going on with those tops.
So that guy was a friend of another customer that I had already made boots for, and he came to me, and he's an Austin guy, and his family's been in Austin for a long time, and he is what I would describe as like a patron of the arts, and I think he would say that, or he has said that too, and he just said, "I love your work, and I really like the boot box that you made." So I have this like illustrated box that my boots come in when someone picks them up. It's like back on my Instagram at some point if people want to see it, but it's fun. It's like, it's got boots on the table with like a spilled beer, and there's like a cigarette and an ashtray, and there's like a coyote howling at the moon and UFOs and all this stuff. And it's just like, it's just fun. It's like, I had some ideas and I was like, this would be great. Like, it's kind of goofy, but that's just kind of my brand, I guess. And so I made this box. And he saw the box and he was like, that's kind of what I want, like that style or whatever. He's like, I want something Texasy, but beyond that, I don't really have anything specific. So I was like, man, I've always wanted to do like a cosmic cowboys in space or something like that. Like I've got some doodles from a couple of years ago, or maybe like 5 years ago at this point, for this pair that's been in my mind. And there's like, my dog at the time is like piloting this croissant shaped spaceship that's like blasting a slice of pizza up in the sky, and the eventual idea, and I'll get back to your point in just a second, is to have like the two boots with like kind of opposing images. So like on one boot there might be like the cowboys like blasting over here, and then the aliens are on the other one like blasting back at the cowboys, and there's like intergalactic space battle happening across the boots. So I didn't quite go that far on these, because he's like, I want something Texasy. And I drew some stuff up, and it just like, it was deserty, but he was like, oh, it looks like Utah or something, because they were just generic mountains, right, and a desert. And I wasn't really feeling it either. And something popped in my mind. Like, I love Big Bend National Park. I've been there, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen times. And I've been a lot the last maybe last year and the year before. I went pretty frequently. And I'd gone to Santa Elena Canyon at some point during that time. And so I don't know if I was just on the internet or whatever, but Santa Elena Canyon popped in my head. And which is this just beautiful, I don't know what you call it, but like that, not a valley, but there's just like two mountains, right? And the river runs right in between them, and the mountains are real tall. The water's down at the bottom, and it's very calm, and it's cool. And you have like the mountains, you have the water, you have like desert, and kind of have to hike out there. And it's just an amazing part of the park. And it also like it's kind of a perfect thing to put on a pair of cowboy boots because it fills up everything, right? Like you have foreground with the desert and the water, you have like background with the sky, and then you have kind of that like middle section with the mountains on either side, right? And I wanted to do something kind of goofy, or I guess, I don't know, I was like, I want to do something like fun, like I love UFOs and aliens and stuff. And so yeah, I don't know. I just the aliens decide, if I can like maybe paint a narrative here. There's like a peaceful armadillo and a prickly pear cactus, right? Just chilling in the foreground. And off into the distance, you can see a little UFO just chilling up there, and the sky's blue, everything's kind of calm. And then the aliens come down, UFO like appears in the foreground. This is on the back panel now. And it gets big and it blasts with its little, gamma ray. It blasts the armadillo, and the armadillo, instead of just like, being kind of calm and peaceful, he's like up in the air and his feet are kicked up and he's on his back, but he's not like upset about it, right? He's like, this is awesome. I'm going to go for a ride with these guys and it's going to be great. Like, he's not mad about it. And then I'm also a big fan of mushrooms, like magic mushrooms. And so the prickly pear cactus are converted, I guess, into magic mushrooms by this gamma ray. And it's unclear whether that's just like a reaction between like the radiation of the beam and the prickly pear, or if maybe the aliens are doing a bit of like cosmic alchemy by turning the prickly pear into mushroom and taking it back to their home planet for their own personal medical usage. But yeah, so I just like, I wanted to do something fun, and something that's really important to me and the designs that I'm coming up with is I'm trying to stick to a narrative. This is like one of the big things for me, and like my personal style, going back to the other question, is I want to do things like I want to create designs that like have a story or like tell a story between, the front and the back or whatever. But I just want there to be some like movement, like I don't want things just to float or look like I just, I went into Microsoft Paint or whatever, like clip art kind of stuck here and there, like a bunch of disjointed ideas. Like I want to use the tops like as a canvas, like just like I were to like make a painting or a drawing or something like that. And I think, cowboy boots are such a unique tool of personal expression for so many people that for me, the way to like express something is to like tell this story, to like add my story, whether it's, fictional or whatever, this goofy space aliens. I get to like add this little short story into the narrative of my customer's life. And then, as he's like showing the boots off to his friends or whatever, like he gets to kind of like pass that along. And honestly, that was, if every customer and every pair of boots could be like that, I would be just over the moon happy. And that's not always the case, like everybody's got a budget and has ideas. But I am grateful for people that do come to me with a small idea and a lot of trust, right? Because then I get to do a little bit more than if they come to me with kind of a full-fledged idea.
Right. And it's like then your two stories sort of join in the boots. Like the customer, he or she comes at it with their story, you come at it with your interpretation of that story, and then here's something completely new for the customer and maybe the human race as a whole to enjoy just by looking at it on your Instagram.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Thank you for that. That's I love the story aspect to it. I feel like there needs to be more attention on stories. I love stories, especially with music, but if anything's got a story, I'm all about it, and I love your focus there. But you were talking a little bit about the box, and I got some questions about the box too, because it's like your branding. That's what you said, like weird, like this all this stuff Texas is going on is your branding. But also on the box it says really nice, really expensive cowboy boots, right? And
Yeah.
also it says actually made in Austin, Texas. And I was curious about those and where those phrases come from, and why do you focus on those specifically?
Okay, so I knew somebody was going to ask me about that, the
Yes.
actual at some point, but
I'm glad I'm the first one then.
really nice, really expensive just comes from the fact that like I want to be pretty clear with people about part of the experience they're going to have if they come to me for a pair of boots. And those are two of the biggest points. I want to make the absolute nicest thing that I can make for people, and at the same time, like, you know, all makers and artists or workers in general deserve to be paid for their time. And I don't think people really understand how much time goes into a pair of boots, because some people will tell you, oh, I can make a pair of boots in 40 hours. And that's true. But everybody does it differently, right? Everyone has a different market or a different style or whatever. So like a lot of people can make multiple pairs in a week or in a month or whatever. That's not how I was taught. And that's like, it's really hard for me to say this because I'm not digging at anyone. Like everyone just has a different thing. Everyone has a different style and method, a different approach to doing this. Mine is really slow, maybe not slow, intentional, and laborious, right? There's a lot of steps and it takes a lot of extra time. And so because of that, yeah, it costs a lot. Like I've got a pair, like that pair that you're talking about with the inlay with Big Bend and all that stuff. Think that I probably have close to, like, with artwork and everything. I mean, from the moment I started thinking about it till the moment he picked them up, I probably have somewhere near like, I don't know, 300 hours or something like that in there. Because like, you know, I spent like almost a week just doing artwork and stuff, right? And it's like, you know, I can sit down and doodle something, but it's not ready to make at that point, right? It's like I have to make my technical patterns. I have to like take my artwork and make it work on a pair of boots, right? With like dimensional constraints. So it takes a lot of time. And I really hate having to sell myself. I'm not good at that, and it makes me very uncomfortable. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go out on my own. I'm going to open my books now. What are a couple of things that I can do to be very clear, so that I can like clearly define some expectations so that I can avoid some awkward conversations with people. And at the root of it, like my stuff is really nice and it is really expensive. So I don't know, I'm a little cheeky sometimes. And I was like, well, forget it. I'll just put it on the box. You know, it's kind of funny and I like it. And it's important, you know, like I think it's going to be clear with people about that stuff. You know, like I don't think there's anything wrong with spending $300 on a pair of boots from, you know, a factory store, or spending $15,000 on a pair of boots if that's what you want to spend. I don't ever want to make something for someone that's going to cost more than they're comfortable spending, right? So this helps me filter through people that are willing to spend a little extra to get something nice. Actually made in Austin is a little bit of a dig because, okay,
I knew it. I can't wait to hear this.
Who makes cowboy boots, and I'm not going to name him. But they had a t-shirt, and I saw this t-shirt on somebody like walking around South Congress in Austin one day. This was like last year. And I think it said handmade boots in Austin, Texas. And this is a factory company. And a lot of my friends have these boots. I don't have anything against them, because like I said, like I know my stuff is expensive, but I'm not a boot snob. I don't expect anyone to spend $1 more than they want to spend on a boot. And I have had plenty of, $200 or $300 pairs of boots or cheaper, right? But what bothered me is that this shirt really felt like they were trying to say, we make handmade boots in Austin, Texas. Like someone is sitting down at a bench, cutting and sewing in Austin. And that's not true. And I understand what they mean. Their boots are handmade, right? Like pretty much, I mean, like if we're going to get down to the nitty gritty of it, almost every cowboy boot is handmade to a certain degree, right? Even my stuff, like I use sewing machines, right? I don't like hand stitch inlay. That'd be ridiculous. But like, factories that are having stuff made in Lyon, like there's nothing wrong with the quality of that stuff for the price point, right? It's like honestly a great deal. It should be more expensive for what it is. And it is handmade, but there's like I don't know, it felt a little deceptive, the t-shirt. And it kind of made me mad because I don't know why. I won't get into why. But it made me a little mad. And so, I was like, you know what? My stuff is actually made by these in Austin with the help of some sewing machines and stuff. But every single bit of it is conceived and created like in this room, right? So I was like, yeah, well, I've earned being able to say handmade in Austin. So I'm putting that on my box.
I knew it was a dig, and I love that it was that it came through as a dig. Because that's something that bothers me too. I've noticed the same thing, not only in the boot industry, but almost in every industry, especially when it comes to companies that are headquartered in Texas, like anywhere headquartered in Texas, and then they, go overseas or work with another company someplace else. It's like, because Texas has such a powerful marketing meaning behind it. Like, if it's made in Texas, then it's America's America, basically. So for people to say, here are these boots, and then Austin, Texas underneath that, it is very deceiving and definitely something that marketers love to do, especially headquarters in Texas.
Well, I think another thing that they love to do is use the word handmade. And I've kind of like personally withdrawn from using that a little bit because I think it's just like a really diluted phrase at this point. Like most things in the world are handmade to a certain degree. Like it in the right circles, it can really mean something and have a clear definition. But a lot of times now, like it's just a marketing tool, like McDonald's be like, oh, handcrafted hamburgers. It's like, what's different than the hamburgers you made in like 1995? Like literally nothing. Hands were cooking them and assembling the burgers then too. We all know that you use people's hands to do this stuff, right? But like the word handmade is supposed to imply something beyond like this base level of quality. Like it's supposed to like enunciate the fact that these are exceptional, right? But now everybody uses it. It doesn't matter. Like it could be like, handmade Miller Lite. It could be whatever. It's like, yeah, I believe that there's a person working in this factory, but it's just a little bit of a loaded phrase now. And I feel like it's kind of lost a lot of its meaning. It's just my personal soapbox take on that. So I'm going to leave it on the box because my stuff is actually handmade in Austin. But
I think you should.
I'm definitely going to, but I have I don't know, maybe withdrawn a little bit from using that phraseology quite so much because I don't know, everything's handmade now. So like what's the point?
I know I've done the same sort of soapbox speech several times. I have a whole video about it. Handmade and handcrafted doesn't mean anything anymore. They're all just marketing terms.
Exactly. Which is fine. It's fine to say stuff is handmade, but I don't know. I just like maybe marketing makes me mad because I don't know. It's just feels a little deceptive. Feels like the implication of the quality that isn't actually there a lot of the time. And I'm not necessarily talking about the brand that I'm talking about when I sell that t-shirt, because I think they are like a good value for the money. But I just mean in the general sense, I think like marketing firms, people like, let's back it off a little bit and find something new. I don't know.
Tell me about it. Yeah, it does get kind of frustrating, the amount of spin that they put on things. Let's get back to the live chat here, because we did get several questions in while we were chatting there. So thank you everybody for your questions. We have a question here from Challenger Guy 45, coming in from the topic that we were just talking about there with some factory boots. Maybe this can work into that. He asks, is there any new trends or innovations that could come and change the cowboy boot world? Do you want to be an innovator or someone who refines a concept into just art, which we talked about, the art aspect of it. But what about the trends and innovations that could change the boot world?
No, that's a great question. I like to think that I'm like pretty firmly rooted in a lot of traditional techniques, but I have I don't know, kind of give myself the space to like pursue new things. Like if something's gonna help me do better work, then I'm all about it. So like for me, I do a lot of like design work on the computer, right? It's just easier for me. It's replicable. It's, I can save it. I can move it around, whatever. The biggest things in my mind, as far as innovation goes, would be like 3D. So like 3D foot scans, 3D printing lasts, stuff like that. I mean, it's already happening. Like there are, like larger shoe firms and stuff, especially in the UK and elsewhere, like they're already 3D printing stuff. They're like, I got my feet 3D scanned at the running store here. And I have my scan. So it's like, the technology is there and it is already in use at, on the factory level. It's just like, scrubs like me don't have X thousands and thousands of dollars to invest in like a 3D foot scanner and a printer that's capable of 3D printing a last, right? But I think at some point, that sort of technology will be more useful at the like level, the like independent level that I'm at, right? I think it's really cool, like measuring people's feet and building lasts is the absolute hardest part of this entire thing. And everyone approaches that differently, right? Like in the US, most bootmakers are using a plastic last now, not very many people are using wood, and wood's more expensive, whatever. In the UK, and we generally will start off with a smaller last and build it up to fit, right? For the most part. But like in the UK, they might start with like kind of a blockier pattern that's oversized out of wood and then carve it down to meet the customer's measurements, right? And like, if you look at like an English bespoke shoemaker, like they're literally hand carving their lasts from blocks, right? So they might do like a draft pattern and send them off to be graded and replicated for the other foot, get them back, carve that stuff down. So everybody approaches it differently, but I don't know, like the last building is like a technical thing, but it's also like a bit of an art form. I mean, it's definitely a bit of an art form. So I don't know how that'll exactly play in, but I see that happening probably sooner than later. Like people are already doing it, people are definitely already doing it and using that technology. Beyond that, like I know a lot of people are using laser cutters for inlay work and top work and stuff like that, which I think is really cool. I don't really have the space or the money for something like that. And it's a little, I think it can work to a certain point through the process, but like if I could show you something. Okay, so this is the pattern I'm working on right now, right? So this started off as one piece of Jasmine Kangaroo. This is from Lisa Sorrell's store. You can buy this stuff. It's great. So like if I was using a laser cutter, I could, for the initial cut, use that to cut this pattern shape and all of this inlay, like initial inlay holes out of that, right? I could use a laser cutter for that. But I think at the, kind of consumer, like prosumer level, I don't know that I would be able to go back in with more pieces put in and cut out reliefs for here. So it's like, I have one piece, there's another piece there, there's another piece behind it there, right? So for me at this point, if I was doing like more simple inlet, I don't know, honestly, like I know people that have them and I think they're pretty cool. I just don't have the like space or money for one. Otherwise I would probably buy one and use it to a degree.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you think it would be more difficult to do the skiving if you did the
No, I my only concern is the burning, because like it is a laser, like it's cutting it, but like I've seen it in person, and my concern was like, okay, if I put like a piece of white or bone kangaroo or whatever in here and we cut the inlay design out, is it going to leave a brown edge all the way around? And it really doesn't, especially if you have a higher quality machine. Like there's some people, some good bootmakers who are doing like incredibly quality work with laser cutters. And I know there's a lot of people who are going to turn their nose up at that, but in my mind, like, I mean, I know how to do it with a, busted 3115 with a sharpened needle, but like, so like, where's the crime in using something to make it even better? And it's like,
Yeah.
no, at a certain point, like if you replace all the parts, like you replace all the parts on a ship, is it still the same ship or is it a different ship or whatever? But like, I don't know, if I can use something to do better quality work, then I want to do it. And at this point, my clapped out 3115 with a sharpened needle in it as a cutting head, like it works really well for me. So I don't really have a reason, aside from the space and money, to go out and buy a laser cutting machine. But maybe at some point, then I might get something like that, but not anytime soon. And it still probably wouldn't be my go-to. I mean, I make like 1 or 2 pairs at a time. So is it really necessary? Probably not. Is it going to do anything better than what I can do with that 3115? Probably not, but it would be cool. And it would be great for small products, which I think is what a lot of folks are using that for. So lasers, 3D stuff, especially scanning. I don't know beyond that. I feel like those are the big technological things that stick out in my mind right now.
No doubt. And I have talked to a bootmaker who is using a CNC laser cutter on a regular basis. Chase DeForest, I believe she's in Washington, D.C., I think. She does that for almost all of her stuff when there's inlay, even just for her leather art too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing is like, I would like to do some larger scale leather art. Like I would love to take an entire side of calfskin and do like a massive inlaid piece just to go on the wall or something, right? But aside from cutting it out with a knife, which obviously people did for a really long time, and a lot of people still cut their inlays with a knife. I personally don't. It'd be like nearly impossible to like fit that through my little 3115 unless I just rolled up the edge, for like half the time to fit it under there.
I would love to see it. I hope someday you get the chance to do that because that sounds awesome. All right, one more question here from the live chat. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. I don't think we'll have time to get to them all, but this one comes from Smack Daddius. What is your favorite leather to wear for your personal cowboy boots?
Ooh, suede pigskin for sure.
Why is that?
I love suede, and the pigskin is great. I mean, it's very durable. It's, for the most part, depending on the skins that you buy, it's water resistant. It stretches, it's fairly warm, but it's not too hot. And it's like, you can't really beat it up enough to damage it, right? Like I have a pair, I don't have them here, but the first pair that I ever made myself are black pigskin. And also like, that's what Lee wore, his like personal boots were suede pig. And I was like, oh man, this is just so cool. So I made a pair of black pigs for myself, and it's just like, I'd like drip oil on them from my motorcycle, or I like, I kick something and the suede gets matted, and then I just like, I clean them up and I take a Scotch-Brite and like wake the nap up and go about my business. Like, I mean, they do look pretty rough at this point, but like for the most part, it's incredibly durable. It's soft, it's fairly inexpensive too, which, is a factor if you're like comparing it to like kangaroo or something like that, or alligator. But yeah, I just think like all around, it's a great leather. It's definitely more on the work end of the spectrum. It's like if someone came and they were like, I want like a dress suede boot, I probably wouldn't choose suede pig because you get a lot more imperfections in the skin than you do with like a nice calf suede or something like that. And I'm not talking about rough out, I'm talking about like sueded calf. So yeah, definitely suede pig for that. I love kangaroo. I don't have a pair of kangaroo boots. I've never worn a pair of kangaroo boots, but I have some set aside for myself to make at some point. Both of my like personal pairs are suede pig in the foot. So I need to change it up a little bit.
Nice. Hey, you like what you like, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think we're getting to the end of our conversation here, Graham. So I want to thank you for spending this time with us today. but I want to ask you how somebody could order boots from you, and what is that process like while we have you here?
Sure. Yeah. So I do finally have a website up. It's grahamebner.com, and you can go over to the order boots section, and there's all the information there. Process, pricing, how to order. My books are not open right now, but I'm hoping to finish my current log by the end of the year, and then open up maybe in January or beginning of the year. I don't know, something like that. But the first step and the necessary step is to just fill out the contact form. So I've got your name and your information, and I can add that to my contact list, which is not an order list, just to be clear. I'm not taking any money at this point. It's just a list for me to start contacting people on when the book's open. So if you're interested, I probably won't open my books in the same way that I did last time, which is just like a kind of an Instagram free-for-all. So head to the website, read the information there, shoot me your information, and then when the time comes and it looks like the books are going to open up, then I'll reach out and go from there.
Awesome. So how are you going to do it this time? Because I remember last time it closed up real fast. Like, you got your orders in quick.
Yeah.
Are you giving preferential treatment to people who didn't get in that time, or you're just sort of opening it up and saying, all right, we're kind of doing this again, floodgates are opening in a little different way?
Yeah, it's not entirely clear, but all I can say is the first step, the main thing that needs to happen is that I literally have your information. So I'm not going to do just like an Instagram DM thing like I did last time. It's too difficult to keep track of everyone. This way, I have people's contact information in order of when they sent it to me. So if you're interested, that is the absolute necessary first step that needs to happen, is send me your information on there, on the ordering boots page, and that way we can chat about it later. Beyond that, it's we've got to talk about what you want, what your budget is, and make sure that it's going to fit, that we are going to fit, and then move on after that. But I'm hoping to knock everything out that I've got going by the end of the year. Pretty much on track to do that, but we'll see. So as soon as I kind of see the finish line, then I'll put some more information out, send out a little newsletter sort of thing. There's contact form on there if people have questions about anything else too. And I should have the store open next week, with some stuff in there, t-shirts and belts, watch straps, some little merch and stuff like that.
I got my t-shirt, everybody. I gotta get another one because I'm in the gym and I'm busting through this one.
We are gonna do. My friend Stephen Wimberly did that one, and he is gonna do kind of a reissue, like a slightly modified version of that one at some point soon. And then I've got another really cool one that an artist named Michael Johnson here in Austin did, that I'm gonna put out hopefully next week. They should be done at the printer maybe today or tomorrow. So very excited.
If people ever get a t-shirt with maybe a kind of a design that's on the box,
maybe. I've definitely thought about that. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's this. All these things are on my to-do list. It's just whether or not they get done and when is the bigger question.
Tell me about it. It's tough running your own thing. The fact that you keep doing it is the most important thing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Graham, for spending your time with us today. Guys, get on his list over at his website, because when he opens his books, they're going to close up fast, just like they did last year. This man makes some great boots, really nice, really expensive boots, that is. So thank you so much for hanging out with us, and everybody, thank you for watching live and listening to this after the fact. Graham, you can stick around if you want, but everybody else, have a great evening. Peace, everybody. Have a good one. All right.